Hello, and welcome to CDO Magazine Interview Series. I am Michael Schwarz with Resultant. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Owen Tak, who leads business intelligence and data management. Hey, Owen.
Hi, Michael. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to spend some time with you. Thinking about true dissemination and business intelligence and data management, how do you showcase the value here? And maybe I actually change that a little bit to some of your terms you mentioned around quick wins. How do we take quick wins and, just expand those so that you really get that movement going forward?
For sure. Yeah, that's it's when we're talking about bringing data into focus, we usually hear two approaches: a grassroots approach, doing proof of concept, quick wins to get the buy-ins, and the top-down approach. But we have implemented those two, and then we see what we're missing. What we're missing is in the middle layer. So we have executive support, we have proof of concept, we have those quick wins, but then we have to get that middle management involved, because that middle management is part of the data community. We have our data stewards, data owners are part of that community that we have to really work closely with to get them on board. And you mentioned quick wins. That's business needs to see something tangible, such as dashboards or quick use cases that they get convinced in that there's value in what we're doing. If we only focus on the long-term strategy, it's going to take us 5 years to develop this data warehouse or to move to Snowflake or anything. It's not tangible. It's great that you're doing that, but I need something today. I need to add value today. And that's where creating those small dashboards or KPI summary or those quick use cases help really bring that into attention.
Let me ask this very, very tactical. So back to the last couple of discussion points we had, from the leadership side to the delivery side. You mentioned some of your executive relationships and at that peer level, and then all the way down in the organization. So one thing that some find challenging as well is getting all the use cases and needs and then prioritizing them. And so I think that maybe there's a way of using the grassroots and the bottom up to develop those problem statements and use cases. And then, we can work on things for 5 years. We need to continue to add value, but then how do we prioritize that? Is that where some of the executive relationships come into play too?
It's both ways. We have kind of a matrix that we decide which use cases bring forward a lot of values, and then we prioritize based on that. It's not an easy task. There's not certain specific criteria. I would say this adds this much value, and this is the timeline that we need it in. But we do our best into developing that matrix, figuring out what is in weighting average, what's the use case that adds the most value. And sometimes we're proving that it's right, but sometimes we prove that we completely miscalculated. We thought that this is going to add a lot of value, and then so it's really important to keep that agile mindset and do all of these in an iterative process. So we always have to keep in mind that we're gonna, crawl, walk, run. We can't just, go from crawling to running, and we have to go back and revisit those use cases and make sure that they're adding value consistently, not just an initial value. And so we have those evaluation processes that we constantly looking at everything that we're doing and making sure that we prioritize based on that.
Yeah. How do you manage some of those expectations during those agile cycles? It's sometimes, the expectations can be really sky high, and there's quality issues, other issues that come along. But how do you work with the teams and help to manage expectations through those cycles of what they can expect to be part of?
For sure. I would say that's the hardest part of the job.
Right. That's where the relationships matter too, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So yeah, that's extremely hard to do. Data is usually seen as a magic bullet. So to solve all the business problems. And expectation is that the data is readily available when we're asking for data, we're asking for these kind of reporting or use cases, that's just available. And it's just that you can get it at the click of button. Sometimes the understanding is not there. And that's where the data culture and data education comes into play to manage that expectation. We all know that the kind of a big portion of data management is that change management. So how do we go about changing that data culture and expectation that comes from different teams at all levels to make sure that we can deliver value, but sometimes the expectation is set high, and because the reason for that is because the education piece is missing and we don't know what's involved in creating those use cases.
That's right. The education and change management piece.
And also communication, to cut you off. Communication is the key.
Yes.
That has to be
go.
constantly communicated with the stakeholders. And that's crucial part of the strategy that, to avoid misrepresentation.
That's so where you said communication, where I was going to prompt just to follow up on thoughts is, some will call it storytelling around data storytelling as well. And when I think about that, if you're going to be a robust and articulate data storyteller, you have the education and the understanding, you have the understanding of the use case, and you're able to narrate through some of the analytics and business intelligence that actually makes some of the change maybe a little easier to digest or more actionable. So just curious on the storytelling side, if you partner with some of the business teams to do that, if you've thought through ways that you present and share and articulate some of that on the storytelling side.
Oh, for sure. That's when it comes to conveying the message that we're putting together, it's that storytelling becomes a crucial part of that, because that is, no matter what the findings or insights is, that has to be communicated to all levels. And so we work with different teams and we try to understand the business problem very clearly, and that storytelling is very curated to that business problem. So understanding what it is and going through the steps, providing solutions, and then doing recommendations. That's as I said, it's. And when we do that, we actually have short-term and long-term visions, and that has to be clearly also defined in as this goes to the previous question about how do we prioritize, and storytelling becomes part of that.
Yeah. Owen, thank you for joining me today.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And as always, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.